Alrighty, we continue our series on the religious vote. You remember yesterday we spoke to the Reverend Franklin Graham about the evangelical vote. And a recent poll, we showed it yesterday, shows President Trump holding a 66 to 28% lead over Joe Biden with evangelicals. Now, most of you are probably saying, wow, that's great. That's a huge lead. But the interesting thing is it's actually down from the 80% of evangelicals who voted for President Trump over Hillary Clinton in 2016. So is this a concern? Well, let's ask Ralph Reed. He's the president and founder of the Faith and Freedom Coalition and the author of a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Ralph, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Sean. Good to be with you again.
Congrats on the book.
Thank you. It's going well.
Good. That's what you always hope for in books. I came to know you in the 90s as the head of the Christian Coalition. And you are, and you still are, just to be clear, a force. You guys had voter education guys. You were out in front of churches. This little drop that I just noted in the polls, what are you and other evangelical groups doing to mobilize and get out the vote for the Christian vote?
Frankly, Sean, more than has ever been done in modern American political history. I mean, I was very privileged to be a part of, I think in all humility, because it wasn't me, it was a team, being a part of a movement at the Christian Coalition in the 90s that I think changed the trajectory of the country politically. And I think those changes have proven to be enduring and lasting. But I have to say, what we now have at Faith and Freedom, and we're just one organization among many, is a Ferrari. And the Christian Coalition was a Model T Ford. I mean, we've identified, using the most sophisticated data analytics available in the world today, 41.6 million pre-qualified evangelical and faithful Catholic voters. About 22.1 million of those are in the states that will decide the outcome of the election. We're going to knock on the doors of the homes of 3 to 4 million homes with somewhere between 6 and 8 million voters in those homes in the key states. We'll be sending out between 20 and 30 million text messages. When early voting began in Minnesota last Friday, there were 178,215 evangelical voters who got a text message to their cell phone. We're mailing them, we're phoning them, we're hitting them on Facebook, we're emailing them. 200 million voter contacts. In addition to 30 million voter guides in 117,000 churches, there's never been anything like this in modern American politics. And Sean, it's going to be 4 times more than we did in 2016.
Wow. Okay.
Ralph, before we let you go, I got to ask you about the Supreme Court justice seat being filled. Politico came out with this article showing that there's a little bit of a battle inside the Trump campaign, but it goes on to say on one side, there's this battle, but conservatives are also worried about Trump blowing this. Who do you think is the best option for him to pick, Lagoa or Barrett? Obviously, they're the two front runners.
Well, I promise you, this is not an answer for public consumption. I've shared this with the White House. I totally defer to the president's judgment. I've been close to this process, Sean. When you were there, we were doing that first pick during the transition. And the president asked all the right questions both times with Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. The process is airtight.
But the political article, excuse me, Ralph, I'm sorry, but the political article that Lindsay referenced did say in that story that evangelical leaders such as yourself actually were making a strong and compelling case for Barrett. Is that inaccurate, or would Politico, not that they haven't been wrong before, but is that accurate?
I can't speak for anybody else, but I've made my views clear. I defer to the president's judgment.
Okay.
And I'm going to support whoever he nominates. And I've told him and everybody else, everybody on that list is an outstanding judicial candidate, and I'll support whoever he nominates.
Yeah, he doesn't have a bad choice in this. Ralph, thank you for updating us to all the stuff you're doing. It's fascinating and obviously very compelling what you're doing to get out the vote. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
All right.
Y'all have a great day.
And congrats on the book again. All right, well, let's switch our gears to the Muslim vote. According to the Pew Research Center, there were about 3.5 million Muslims living in the U.S. in 2017. And a recent survey shows that 51.1% of Muslim voters are primarily affiliated with the Democratic Party. 17.5% are affiliated with the Republican Party, and 24.5% are claim to be independents. So how big of an impact will the Muslim voters have in November? Joining us to discuss that is Dr. Zuhdi Jassar. He's the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Dr. Jassar, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
All right, doctor, just plain and simple, where does President Trump stand with the Muslim community?
Well, I think, as simple as that answer should be, I think it should be better than ever. And by the way, these are my own opinions, not from our foundation, but as a Muslim activist for decades now, I've seen our community hijacked by the Islamist movement. In the Middle East, Islamists are a political party. And what's happened with the likes of Ilhan Omar and sort of this red-green alliance between the far left, we've seen what's happening on the streets with BLM, sort of the radicalization of the Democratic Party. It's the same tune of sort of the AOC Omar bond, if you will. And we've seen it at the UN with the far left and the Islamists. Now, in America, I like to look more at the Arab American vote, the Iranian American vote, et cetera. And a lot of those communities now, as we see the Abraham Accords just signed, as we see Saudi Arabia drifting away from the Brotherhood, less funding into radicalizing the West, Muslim Americans are starting to go back to our values. That 60-40 coalition, 60% of Muslims voted for Bush back in 2000. That's starting to come back now because the radicalization of the Islamic community by telling all of my fellow Muslims that somehow the right is anti-Muslim, that we're bigots, all of these identity politics that are simply agitation propaganda, they've not been able to stick on President Trump. And in fact, the Abraham Accords, his attention to defending the Iranian people against the appeasement of what Obama did. I can tell you as a Syrian American, almost every Syrian I've talked to that are Muslim are saying there has been more progress against the genocidal Assad regime in Iran under President Trump than there was with the appeasement of President Obama.
Well, Doctor, I got to ask you that because I know that Republicans a lot of times like to talk about Muslim extremism. Do you think that this hurts Trump in the end, that this is a talking point sometimes of the right?
The number one victims of Muslim extremism are other Muslims. So when President Trump talks about Ilhan Omar and her anti-Americanism, I can tell you as an American Muslim who served in Somalia on a ship, she said as she was getting elected that our troops were the terrorists there. So no, it is very appropriate. I tell my fellow Muslims, if you're going to be so anti-American, why are you in this country? So it's not bigotry for President Trump to bring that up as he did a few days ago. It is very much a Muslim talking point to say we are here because of the freedoms we can have here to practice our religion freely more than we can anywhere else. And I think that's actually going to help his numbers more than it would hurt within the Muslim community that's pro-American and pro-liberty.
Dr. Jassar, before I let you go, real quick, as I mentioned at the top, there's about 3.5 million Muslims living in the United States. Are there any swing states where they could be decisive? I'm thinking like Michigan, maybe.
That's a great point. And if we look in Michigan, Rashida Tlaib and some of the Islamist sympathizers did not have as easy a go of it. Even Ilhan Omar had a primary challenger. So if you see challenges within their primaries happening, imagine what's going to happen in the general election where the governor there, for example, shut down businesses for a long time. Many American Muslims are entrepreneurs, free market folks like myself and small business, and they don't like to see governors take away their rights to keep their businesses open, make money, and give back to this country. And I think they're going to see that American Muslims aren't going to fall just on the lines of sort of Middle East politics, but rather American politics of less taxation, stronger national defense, and other issues that are core conservative issues.
All right. Dr. Jassar, thank you for being here. I appreciate your insights.
Anytime. Thanks.
All right, guys, stick with us. We'll be right back.